Hey, y'all. Welcome to the Champagne Wives podcast. I'm your host, Kelly.
And I'm your co-host, Nicole. Hey, girls.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. She's like, I'm ready to jump in there.
Hi. You doing good?
I'm great.
Good. Okay, so we're joined by a guest again.
I love when we have a guest.
Me too. Me
love
too.
it.
It's always so great to hear other perspectives. So before I introduce our guest, Kelly and I, as you know, were moms of school-aged children, and there is so much that we have seen over the last year and a half just on social media about what's going on in the classroom, what's going on in schools, the good, the bad, the ugly, and the uglier. And we thought that it would be a great topic to introduce this season to talk about ways in which we can help ensure the success of our children in the classroom, and wanted to bring in somebody. We have our opinions, but we wanted to bring in somebody who has been in the education system at a very high level. So we have Siobhan, who is a principal at a Houston area school, who is going to talk to us today, or at least just answer some questions that we have, right? Because for me, I'm a first-time mom with a middle schooler, and I'm trying not to mess it up, right? Because you only got one shot, and you have an elementary, almost middle school age child, and we got two right behind them, and we just want to get it right. So why not ask people who have seen success stories, but then also seen the missteps that have turned into not so successful stories. So we have Siobhan here to talk to us today. Hi, Siobhan. Welcome.
Hey.
Hi. So thankful to be here.
We're so happy to have you. Okay, so let's start off just with the obvious question, because let me just say, I like to tell a story. So a couple of months ago, maybe about eight or 9 months ago, scrolling through TikTok, late night scrolling, and I hear Sexy Red Ski Wheat, and I'm like, okay, that's a popular song. But as I'm looking at it, I see 3- and 4-year-olds singing the song. And then I see school talk, I think was the hashtag. And then I look down, I get into that rabbit hole. And then I see kids fighting. Then I see parents getting into it with teachers, parents getting into it with other parents. What the hell is going on? Is social media giving us a accurate depiction of these challenges, or is this just sensationalized because it's social media?
It's social media, yeah.
Well, unfortunately.
No, say it ain't so.
Bad.
You haven't even said it, but
right.
Unfortunately,
so.
I do feel like there are cases where we see behaviors and things of that nature, both in and out of school. So there is some truth behind, some of those videos that you see. But we're just dealing with a different type of culture in the schools right now. And so, the influence that social media has with our students, we are doing everything that we can to educate them on how to use it, how to be objective. And right now, we're just really, really struggling in this culture post-COVID. But I feel like prior to COVID, we were still dealing with some of these same issues, but now it's just more visible in our communities because of social media.
Right.
So nothing about the behavior is new. But just the access to that information and how the community gets it is, what we're dealing with right now.
So social media gives it this amplified platform, it sounds like, and then copycat syndrome probably creeps in a little bit too. So what might have been happening in a school in, I don't know, Tuscaloosa, now everybody across the country can see.
Yeah.
And then copycat
depending on how many likes and views and follows a person gets for certain behaviors, then another person or another student may want to try it in their school.
And they don't show what we do to respond to that all the time. They show that little piece of how we initially intervene, but then they don't show the after.
Well, let's talk about that, because that was the part 2 of my question. What we see is very limited, almost a hands-off level of involvement from the teachers. All you see is if it gets physical, on-campus security guards or cops are coming in to kind of diffuse the situation, but it looks like teachers aren't doing anything. And are they trained to not do anything, or is it just kind of the crop and the cut of the video?
No, actually, we do teach our teachers safety first. So we don't require our teachers to get involved all the time.
Right.
We want them to be safe because we need them, just like we need our students. And so we just allow them to kind of make a decision on the situation. If the incident is out of their hands, out of their control, then of course we don't want them going in and possibly being hurt or whatever the case may be.
Right.
And so we have people on campus that are trained to deal with that. So that's when you see like security, even the administration staff, as far as assistant principals, we are, trained to deal and intervene with those type of incidents. So again, I feel like sometimes you don't see the aftermath of those incidents, and you don't see what happened prior.
Yeah, you just see like the powder keg moment.
Yeah, you just see the action. So.
Yeah. It's refreshing and reassuring to know that you all do have a plan in place and that you guys are trained to handle certain situations, as they come up in schools. Because I know for me and a lot of parents, sending my kids to school every day, I have anxiety because of all of the stuff that you see on the news with like school shootings and fights and just like things that are happening that just seem that are out of your control, right? Because when you're dropping your kids off somewhere, then you really can't control in that aspect what happens to them. So it's refreshing and reassuring to hear you talk about the protocols that you all have in place for certain things. Because I get the letters from like the school and the when they have the drills and stuff like that. But I'm like, but teacher, what are you gonna do? Like, are you gonna run and hide?
What's your protocol? Are you barricading the door like they say? Move the desk in front of the door.
What's happening? If some stuff pop off in these schools, child. And so so that gives me some calm. But like, how do you all feel every day going into these school buildings and not knowing what, if anything, could happen?
Yeah. I mean, I've actually had several incidents this year, where I felt like it wasn't a safe situation. And so we go into our emergency procedures. Typically in the moment, we're like at 100 because our thing is we want to keep all the students and staff safe. So what you would typically see on the campus, if we have to call any type of emergency procedure of any sort, like if we have an intruder in the building, then we're immediate, like on alert. Like we're getting our students inside of the classroom, they're barricading, they're hiding. We are taking cover ourselves, but before we take cover, we make sure that our students and staff are safe. Now, again, we're human, right? So, I've been in a situation, I come from law enforcement prior to going into education, and so served 8 years in the community. And so emergency situations on my campus is a little bit different because
you got a playbook that you
you're trained.
And so for me, it's like switching off that mindset of being law enforcement, because it never leaves you, it never leaves you. And so switching that off and following the protocol that are provided by our district. But we have really good district response, really good training. Now, in the moment, do we use it? Not all the time. Not immediately.
That's instinct doesn't always kick in.
Well, instinct, but maybe not the right one.
Yeah. Fight or flight.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Because it's split seconds. So you're like, it takes your brain a few seconds to even register what's happening. What the hell is going on, child? So I just, kudos to teachers and the staff at these schools, because it's a lot to, it's a lot to deal with, especially when you're talking about other people's children,
most definitely. And we want to think of them as our own children, but they're not, but we truly try to be that advocate for our students. And so that requires us to focus on safety first. Get them in a building.
And I think about, we're talking about, just kind of the activity that happens in schools, specifically school shootings, but I think about the fact that you might have a campus, let's say an elementary school, at capacity, 800 some odd kids. That's 800 separate family dynamics and experiences that you are dealing with every single night. And you don't know what parent is doing whatever or has said whatever to a kid that could set a child off.
Yeah.
Right. And we talk about this copycat syndrome that's out there. And it's, you almost, I would feel, and you tell me if my thinking is off here, but I would feel compelled to try and make school be the place of respite for these folks versus the place that creates stress.
Yeah.
Or the place that that would cause them to want to act out in a way that could be damaging and destructive to everybody else.
Yeah.
But there's so many variables, and it gets worse when you get into middle school because the enrollment's larger, and then high school it's larger than middle school. So I'm not built for that. And just thank you to the teachers, thank you to the educators, thank you to the counselors, because those counselors, whew, they get
those
it.
counselors.
Those counselors
well.
get
It's a lot.
They get a lot.
Yes, I can imagine. So that system actually works as well, because not in the school system. So I'm just completely ignorant to, like, I see the counselor, but I just don't know like how busy he or she is right at the schools. And so I know they're there for a reason, but just from your experience, you all hear a lot when you're dealing with these students, to Nicole's point, who comes from different backgrounds, come from different family dynamics, etc. Wow.
When do they get activated? Like, when would a counselor get activated?
Like, does a student have to ask for it?
Yeah.
No, at any time. Like, our counselors are there not just to support our students, but also our staff. And so a counselor's role and function changes as they go up to secondary. Like, so elementary, you're going to see more of that traditional counseling, right? Because we're dealing with the students and their foundational skills that they're trying to acquire.
Right.
But as they go up to middle school, as you mentioned, in high school, the counselor's role kind of changed, and they become more of a guide for the pathway that the student wants to take. So in elementary, we're focused on, just restorative practices and teaching them how to, utilize those social skills in an appropriate way. But in middle school and high school, for example, because most of my experience is in secondary, it looks different. A counselor is there to guide that student to whatever post-secondary opportunity they're going to take. So it's less counseling and more coaching on the next level.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I remember because in school they used to call it guidance counseling. A guidance counselor.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different from elementary, but our counselors do a phenomenal job with making sure that we provide those kids everything they need. I like to say as a principal that when a child enters my building, it is my job to level the playing field for every child. Like what you mentioned, they're coming from different families, right?
Yeah.
We have no control over what happens in the house. And so when they come to our campus, regardless of what they have, what they come from, what they know, it's our job to make sure that we level that playing field and make sure that we provide them with everything that they need.
Yeah.
And sometimes that may mean a snack at 1:00 because the last time they had lunch was at 10:30. Believe it or not, we have students that come to school just to eat.
Yeah. I believe it.
When we have, like this past week, we had Good Friday off. Some of our students, we have to send home with care packages because we know that that's an extra day that they're going to be at home.
Right.
And I mean, it just is, it's very disturbing, but
it's a lot to take
the
on.
need is greater than just the education.
Yeah.
And how do you expect the baby to concentrate on multiplication if they're hungry?
Yeah.
My mom used to send me to school with a full belly, but the way my metabolism was set up when I was young, it was by 10:30 I was hungry.
You were starving.
Over here, biting my toenails, my fingernails, anything I could find. Like and I get it. And that was me coming from a household where I had the support and I had the structure and the love. But a lot of kids don't have, not a lot, but there are children that don't have it.
It's a lot. It's a lot of our campuses where we have, think about sometimes 75% economically disadvantaged.
Yeah.
Which means their family lives below the poverty line, which right now I believe is at about 27,000. So that's the poverty line.
Yeah.
And we have kids that totally depend on it. So when they want to, we provide free breakfast and lunch. So when they want to get an extra breakfast, we give them an extra breakfast.
Do they have to apply for that?
They do have to apply for free and reduced lunch.
Yeah.
Every student, we try to push that every student fills out the paperwork because you just never know. And sometimes parents are too proud, to take that help and support. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's what we have to do if we want our kids to be successful.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Lunch is not that expensive. At least at like my daughter's school, it's not that expensive. But baby, she run through that money. I be like, I get your balance is low. I'm like,
we saw the post, Kelly. We saw the post. Yo, baby.
What are you eating? Send me money.
So I bet you know what my daughter does? She brings goldfish, extra goldfish, and she sells them. She came home with a $20 bill.
What?
She was selling goldfish
These
in the
kids
cafeteria.
Be hungry, girl.
And she's an entrepreneur. That's why I was like, I can't be mad. You can't even be mad.
I mean, my daughter used to draw comic strips, and she would sell them for like 25 cents or $1. And I'm like, why are you doing it? She was like, I don't know. It's a good business.
It's a good business. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. But those kids are hungry. So I can imagine, like, even though, like, it's not that expensive for the lunch every day, but it goes fast.
Yeah.
It goes really fast. And so I'm, spending $50 probably every 2 weeks, a week for her to eat. And I'm like, okay, this should be enough because lunch is not relatively inexpensive, but she's buying her lunch, she's buying her snacks. And I'm like, that money is just
and that's what
dwindling out of the account.
Snacks.
It's the snacks. Right?
It's the snacks.
I see them, and then sometimes they'll buy snacks for their friends. Like, they'll have 10 ice cream bars, and they pass them out. And I'm like, okay, we need to call your mom.
But we can also see what they're buying too.
Yes.
We can go and check.
They outline that.
They're spending their money on. So I want to touch on another topic because my daughter is in 4th grade, so she is, almost wrapping up her elementary and getting ready to go into middle school. And what I've learned is that they, she's been introduced to bullying, so she's not being bullied, but she has been in certain situations where another kid is being bullied. Or they do this little thing where they talk about each other, they roast each other at school. So do you have schools come up with anti-bullying policies? Because I know that for a lot of children, just not just here, but just across the U.S., bullying has become a main topic of depression and suicide. Exactly. And so it's looking like now it's becoming more of a main topic for schools. So can you talk to us a little bit about your anti-bullying policies and some things that your school in particular does to prevent that or help kids who are being bullied?
Okay. Well, the one thing about the bullying is there is a legal definition for bullying. And so anytime we receive any type of report, whether it's, physical bullying where it's happening in the school or if it's cyberbullying, because you got to remember, even though it's not happening on campus per se, when we were talking about social media earlier, cyberbullying is a thing. I can remember when I was in school, the bully was the person who threatened you that morning and you knew you was going to have to fight after school.
Right.
Put him up. You fight and it's over, right?
Right.
But that's no longer, because it does affect the mental health of our students. And so we do have a lot of policies built around it. But the main thing is when a parent reports that there's any bullying or a student reports it, we immediately have to go into an investigation. Sometimes we have to do what's called a threat assessment so that we can see how much of a threat is this to that student, the student body, or the staff, depending on who the victim, alleged victim is. And so we do have protocols that we use, but it starts with an investigation. So we got to figure out what type of bullying they're alleging. We have to speak to everybody that participated. Everybody. I had a bullying case one time that involved about 32 students. And every student had to be spoken to. We have to involve parents in that. So it's not something that we're just talking to the students. We are involving the parent every step of the way. Once we deem that bullying has taken place, then there are consequences, very harsh consequences that go beyond.
Up to expulsion?
Expulsion could be. Typically, with the bullying cases that I've dealt with over the years, the 14 years in education, we get, they get suspensions, things of that nature. We do stay away agreements so that parents know these two students have been named as a part of this case. If they are seen talking around each other, whatever the case may be, and it's hard, to do that, but then we can everything that we agreed upon is null and void, and we're going straight to district-wide or school-wide consequences.
Okay. I couldn't, like, I just, for me personally, I could not imagine if there was social media back in the day when I was in high school. Girl.
Or you be on ISS all day?
My nerves would be bad. Like,
Yeah.
no, because, like, just you have moments, that are embarrassing or they're like, they're cringy.
Yeah.
And like to have your most, I don't know, like weirdest or uncomfortable moment being displayed on social media because a bully doesn't like you and wants to continuously, perpetually embarrass you.
Yeah.
It's just, girl, it's disgusting. Like I feel sorry for these kids these days.
You have to.
Yeah.
I mean, just think about how everyone's freaking out because the Freaknik video.
Oh yeah, all these parents.
Exactly.
All these moms and dads.
All these aunties.
They got tooting and booting on these car hoods and trunks. Yeah.
That was never meant to come out.
No, it was not.
If Kappa Beach video come out, Kappa
Beach.
It's a wrap.
Kappa Beach party you done.
It's a wrap.
All of that. How did I miss all of that?
That's so funny.
I missed Kappa Beach. I did.
And you were right in between both. Freaknik in Atlanta, Kappa Beach
and
here in Galveston.
I didn't do not a thing.
Listen,
Dang,
God knew what he was doing.
Damn.
And so just staying on the topic of bullying, so, I have a son, he's in 3rd grade, and I got a call this school year, but last year, from his teacher who had said that he had some news to share with me that my son had been in a fight at school. And I'll tell you, it's a parent's worst nightmare, right? Because my son had not come home yet, so I had not seen him. I didn't know what condition he was in. All I know is that this kid was much bigger than my son, and my son's not a fighter, but that he had been shoved, he had been punched, he had been spit on, as a result of what this child thought my son had done, and my son's father and I were incredibly diligent in following up with the assistant principal. We asked for who the district person was that we could talk to understand what the policy and the protocol is. And I will just say this to parents. Trust the administrators, but not every administrator is as diligent as you are. And so trust the administrators, but also trust but verify, because there was a very high probability, had we not had foots on the necks of these administrators, that this child was going to still be allowed to be in the same classroom as my son. And not only did we have to work with the administrators, but we also had to work with, parents in the classroom who also had children who had experiences with this aggressor. And he's young, they're kids, but at the end of the day, his learning to control that aggression shouldn't be at the sake of all the other children's learning experiences in the classroom. So, my PSA is, yes, work with the administration, trust your counselors, trust the APs, but then also make sure that you stay consistent until you get the outcome that is at least within policy guidelines. I knew this child was not going to get expelled from the school, but at minimum, I needed him to be removed from the classroom. And that thankfully ended up being the outcome. But don't be satisfied with the first answer you get, and ask for updates. Know the email addresses, communicate, ask the questions that need to be asked until you get the answers that you feel comfortable with, because you have to be the advocate for your child. Because at the end of the day, the administrators are the advocates for all the children, not your child specifically. So my PSA. Based on my experience.
Well, I mean, and that's exactly what we need all parents to do, is be that involved, right? Because we're all human and we are not omnipresent to where we everywhere at all times, and so I think that bringing that up made me think about how parents can support better.
Well, that was our next question, child. So here we go.
And so, I think the one thing that I think about is really understanding how schools work, knowing who your to-go people are. That's always going to be your assistant principal, your counselors, your teachers, but if you feel like, there's anything going on with your student, first remember that we are there for all students. So we're not there to target just your student or target the person who is allegedly, doing anything. It's really up to us to find out how we can restore relationships with students, because that's going to be our first priority, right? Because that's reality.
Yep.
We cannot pick and choose who we're around every day.
Can't pick up a ball and go.
Oh no. And so we have to teach our students that they have to accept the fact that they don't create the rules.
Right.
We created the rules before they even step foot in the building. So their only job is to comply with those rules, or if they don't comply, to go get their advocate so that they can better understand why they need to comply or why they feel like they should not comply. And that's their parent. Right. You're the advocate. Yeah. And then the other thing is maintain. Maintain who? Maintain them. Maintain yourself. Yeah. Because one thing I hear all the time in schools, I call parents and I say, hey, your student had a fight. They hit back and the first thing I hear is, well, my mom told me to hit back when someone hits me, right? But coming from law enforcement again, what happens in the street or at your house is different from what happens at school. Right. We're there to restore those relationships with our students because we want to teach them how to be socially appropriate with one another. And the consequence for hitting back is going to be there.
Oh, okay.
Regardless.
It's not self-defense.
It's not, yeah, right.
And it just depends on the incident, right? Because if I have what we call a mutual fight, that means that somebody hit somebody hit them back, they started fighting. Both students are going to get a consequence. Now, once we further investigate and see that maybe there was a previous incident or whatever, then, we may look into possible, bullying or there was some type of retaliation type behavior. But what we need our students to understand that I said accept, maintain, and then adapt. Adapt to this environment. This is different from your home. This is different from outside in the street. This is school, a place of learning. So everything we teach our students, whether it be academics, whether it be social skills, behavioral things, executive functioning, whatever the case may be, we're there to learn.
What is executive functioning, just for the audience to level set?
Okay, so executive functioning will be all of the things that we do to maintain our stability and to keep us operational. So that could be organizational skills, that could be time management, things of that nature. So when we say executive functioning, that's why we have bells, that's why we have a schedule in the class, so that students can understand this time is not their time. This time is time to learn, and this is what we need to do, X, Y, and Z. Yeah. So again, going back, accept, maintain, and adapt. Adapt to this environment. We want our students to come into the building, feel safe to learn, but it's about learning. So even in an incident where we have a fight, we still need to teach skills so that in the future they can make better decisions and choices, because that's what we have to do. And our whole goal is to get them to where we are as adults, as productive and positive adults. Right. And so to do that, sometimes it may not be the consequence that a
parent would want, right?
Yeah. But it is what we know because we're with them 8 hours a day. And we see things that parents do not see. Yeah. So when you come tell us that Joey was hit, I can tell you that Joey also hit someone that morning. And I watched it and I intervened and we get that so much. We get that so much from parents like, well, my child is being bullied, and that may be so, but we have to investigate. But then when we go investigate, we see that maybe that child was not as innocent as they
they portrayed themselves to be to their parents. Yeah.
And so we just have to be mindful. So I would say parents need to be as involved with the school. Know your go-to people. Know what's going on in school. Things have changed since we've been in school, right?
Or have.
And so here in the state, we are held accountable for academics like you can't even believe. Regardless of COVID and the regression that we saw in our students from COVID, we are responsible for teaching them to help them be competitive with the world outside of the area, the state. Our even students have to compete with other students from around the country and the world. And so we don't have time to, just really be so focused on not doing those restorative practices.
Right.
We have to do that because sometimes
To
we
keep
have
the
to
class moving on
Oh,
and to keep the learning going.
we have to, but again, we're embedding everything that they need, the social skills, you know, like when we were talking about social media, the social media, we're embedding all of that in our academics.
Right.
You know, and so we need parents to be in the know of what we're providing students. If there's a certain model of the instructional model that we're using, we need parents to understand that. You know, because we need you to reinforce what we expect at school, but also we need this to be a collaborative effort.
Yeah.
You know, because it truly does take a village.
It does.
You know, when I left law enforcement because I was tired of being an enforcer of the law and not being an advocate for the needs of the people. And not one time, I can't imagine how many kids I locked up over the years.
Wow.
Not one time did I say, hey, is this student in SPED? Is this student GT? Is this student homeless? No. Just put the handcuffs on them and lock them up.
Yeah.
You know, and so I switched to education because of that. I wanted to be an advocate for what they needed.
Right.
You know, and so that's what I would say. Get involved as much as possible. It doesn't have to be through a PTA or PTO. Just get involved. Be in the know. When the campus has activities, go to the activities. When your student comes home and tell you, ask those questions. What did you learn today? I ask my daughter that all the time. What did you learn in English? What did you learn in math? What did you learn in social studies?
Yeah.
Because as a parent, I don't want my child to go to school and just be satisfied with the status quo of, I'm just going to give what my teacher gives me.
Yeah.
I want you to take what your teacher gave you and extend it.
Right.
If you cannot do that, then you don't know the information.
Right.
If you can't teach me, you did not retain it.
Yeah.
And so those are some things that we need parents to do. Ask those questions. Show up to the school. Be visible in the community. You know the challenges that we're facing when it comes to laws and legislations and policies. Know what we're facing so that you can know the reason, the why behind we run school the way we run it.
Right.
You know, because we're not doing something just come out top of our head and be like, oh, okay. Just like teachers plan their lesson plans, we have to plan how we're going to run the school.
Right.
And so it's just be in the know your district. Be at those board meetings because that's where all the changes happen.
And vote.
And vote.
And vote. Think about the school boards, and it's different in every state. But think about the school boards, and think about what the makeup of your community is, and how does that correlate to the makeup of the school board. And if your community is incredibly diverse and your school board is very homogenous, and you don't have representation in terms of gender, in terms of ethnicity and race, and just even age demographic, you should be concerned.
Yeah.
Right? You should be concerned.
Yeah.
So you definitely exercise that right. And it's interesting that you talk about COVID, and I know there was like the slippage that happened when we were all forced to homeschool our kids, and I think we all realized how
hard it is,
difficult, and how unqualified we are to be educators.
But I learn that every week when my daughter comes home with math.
With this new math.
Fourth grade math, that math don't be math. And I'd be like, what child, what is this?
I thought carry the one. Like that doesn't even exist anymore.
Like so.
Or the box method or all these different methods.
I say, baby,
the number line.
I'm going to get you a tutor because what mommy ain't is good at math. The math ain't mathing on me. Don't they? So wait, before we move on though. So if your child is hit at school, the recommendation is to do what? For them to do what?
So if your child is hit at school, the recommendation, first of all, should be to go to the campus and speak to the assistant principal. Traditionally, assistant principals deal with discipline.
Or what should the child do? Because if the mom is telling the child somebody hit you back, but you said that we're not doing that. So what should the child do in that case?
New Orleans wants to know.
You said New Orleans?
New Orleans wants to know.
I want to know. I got questions.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, the child should go and tell someone.
Go tell someone.
Yeah, because a lot of times, the child thinks, you got to understand, when they're at school, they're in their own world. Even though they're surrounded by adults, they don't see us.
They have their own, just government ecosystem.
Yeah, and so it's just
set of rules and standards.
It's so different. And I just sit there and listen to them. Sometimes I just walk through the cafeteria and I'm like, what are you talking? They having full-blown conversations about life.
Oh, Lord.
I had a second grader say, oh, I'm just so tired today. And I was like, what did you do other than go to sleep last night?
Conversations.
What bills did you pay?
Yeah. But yeah, that would be the main thing. Okay. Tell your child to contact or let any adult know.
Okay.
They don't even have to let their teacher know. If they don't feel comfortable with the teacher, let some adult know, specifically probably the administration, but so that we can intervene.
So you got to play chess, not checkers. So it's not checkers being swing back, defend yourself.
Yeah.
Chess being
strategic.
Protect your face.
And diplomatic.
And get out of the way.
Protect your face. And
get
go,
out of
and
the
go
way
tell somebody.
and go tell somebody.
Yeah. Block and move. Block and move. Block and move and go tell someone.
But also with that too, the expectation, because I have a kindergartner and I have a fourth grader, and sometimes, I'll ask my fourth grader who'll come and my kindergartner who'll say so and so did something, and I'm like, okay, did you tell the teacher? Yes. And what did the teacher say? Go sit down. And I'm like, well, that ain't good. So the hope and the expectation is when they do the right thing, that there's some follow-up from the administrator or the teacher to handle the situation, because at that point, what's the point of them doing the right thing and not defending themselves when the person who is there to help mitigate whatever it is happening does not do what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, and that happens sometimes, unfortunately, that happens, But the one key thing I heard you say is they come home and tell you. And so once they tell you,
and I'll be calling,
that should activate that call.
Like
email, whatever the case may be.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah.
That's true. Okay. Yeah. That's true, because I'm like, oh, what? Let me call the teacher.
Right.
And everybody running around scrambling, trying to figure out and tell me what happened. But you're right. So yeah, okay. There's a partnership.
Yeah. But after you make that first call, they'll make sure that they are really paying attention.
Yeah. Okay.
And I guess another question, right? Like, what if you have a situation where that teacher is just like harping on your kid, and you're right. Like, y'all see the children 8 hours, sometimes a little bit longer a day. We see them awake and coherent for probably 4 hours during the day.
With no academic pressure.
With no academic pressure. When there is that tension between the student and the teacher, like, my natural inclination would be to call somebody, right? To be like, okay, my kid's coming home saying that the teacher's saying this or not doing that, or just not being fair or equitable. What recommendation do you have for parents who are just having a hard time understanding why there's a dynamic, like there's just an off dynamic between a teacher and a child, and how can they work through that, and who do they partner with?
You partner with the teacher. Because you partner with the teacher. First of all, you have to communicate with the teacher, because again, you're getting that one side of the student's perspective of what's going on. I've investigated many cases like this, and a lot of times it's miscommunication. They're not communicating well. And so the first contact should be with that teacher and set up a face-to-face conference. Not over the phone, face-to-face. If it's that much of a concern, face-to-face conference.
Okay.
Why? Because people are different when you're face-to-face.
That's right.
And you have the skills in order to be able to examine and really study that person, their body language. Because if they'll do that with you, you know they're doing it with your child. Right? And I'm not telling you something that just as an administrator, I'm telling you as a parent.
Right.
I had a similar situation with my daughter's counselor. And so we became best friends. Matter of fact, I got him something for Christmas, and we became best friends. And this has been 4 years of working with him. But in the beginning, it was very rough. But the first thing I did was setting up an appointment with that counselor, because I need to know what the problem is.
Yeah.
Because when my daughter's coming home telling me, well, he gave this whatever opportunity to this person, I was there, and he didn't give it to me. Well, my kid is in the top of her class. I mean, she's in the top of her class, so... Right. I'm just trying to get a better understanding of why this child was afforded this opportunity and mine was not. And so sometimes it takes a simple conversation, but I could tell you that took a year of working with that counselor and getting them to understand your job is to guide my child in all of these students. So my child has not received any coaching or guidance from you. How can I better support you so that you can help my child with what they need?
Yeah.
And so once they see that, and I'm not saying that's going to happen all the time.
Right.
But once they see that you're genuinely willing to work with them, most people will say, okay, let me check myself and see what's causing this friction, and let me see how I can better help. So,
and then once they see you, it goes back to what we said about just being an advocate for your child. Because I remember when I was coming up, back in the day, teachers will have their icks for whatever reason, right? And, a lot of children were being left behind, being put in special ed, being sent to detention, put out of class, etc., because they felt that they could, because they didn't have the advocacy from their parents to be able to stand up for their children. And so the teachers would really do, whatever it is that they want to do. I mean, even it happened to me. And I had a teacher go to the administrator and says, Kelly in the class with the weave, because I had long hair. So she had generalized me. Yeah, because I always had long hair. But she went into the office and she's like, the one with the weave. And my mom said, my child, I never wore a weave. So she had to do that. Like she had to come to the school and have a conversation with the teacher and the principal. But a lot of the times it's just people have their ulterior motives for whatever reason, and they feel that they can get away with it. And if there isn't someone, i.e. a parent or a guardian, who can be the advocate and be able to, stand up for their child, they're able to get away with, probably back then more so than now. Yeah, more so than now, because we're a lot more socially conscious and aware, right? It seems like school has a different setup than it did back then. Back then it was just kind of like
Wild
West child. Exactly. But now, you know what I mean? Like there's so much that goes into consideration to like make a school functional and operational and excellent. But yeah, that has something that has always stuck with me. Just, parent advocacy, and just like people are going to test your child, and it's just, you have to be there, you have to be present, you have to like let them know that, okay, I'm here, I care about what's happening with my child. You're not going to, again, pass over my child, look over my child, or treat my child a certain way because of, whatever it is that you have going on. So yeah.
I mean, and that's important, I tell my teachers all the time, it is not the student's job to accommodate you. It is your job to accommodate the student.
Yeah.
And so that's something that we have to teach our teachers skills as well.
Yeah.
They don't come fully equipped with everything.
Right.
And so we have to continuously evolve with the changes that are happening in education, and that requires a lot of training and professional development. So
yeah.
So that's what we kind of focus on, making sure that everyone has an opportunity to increase their capital, their skill set.
Yeah. I love that. I think that's a really great point. But again, like I said, back in the day, that was not there. But that's a good point, because people are humans too. And like these teachers and these administrators come with their own
biases,
background, biases, beliefs, etc. And so that type of development is very necessary in some cases.
I'm seeing far more in-service days on the academic calendar and professional development days, more specifically, than I've seen. Than I know I had. So hopefully there's DEI training that's happening as a part of that. There's self-aware, emotional intelligence training that's happening. In addition to just the making sure that you're up to date and up to speed on what the state requirements are. And it sounds like they are, at least at your campus. So that's fantastic. Yep. So in closing, if you have a child in elementary school, middle school, high school, as a principal, what advice would you give parents at each academic level to ensure, or at least to support and facilitate success for that child? So let's start with elementary. Like, what's the one piece of advice you would say if you are a parent, and your camera's right there, if you are a parent of an elementary school child, here are the 1 to 2 things I want you to focus on, and then same for middle, same for high school, and we'll wrap.
All right. So definitely for elementary, focus on foundational skills. Constantly ask your student, constantly assess your student on if their literacy skills are up. Because if we don't catch it at elementary, it's really hard to catch it at middle in high school.
Good point.
So literacy skills, foundational skills, basic math concepts, math calculation, things of that nature, you definitely have to focus on for elementary, as well as socially appropriate behavioral skills. And so that's something that you want to make sure that you're paying attention to make sure that your student is mastering that piece in elementary. It's really, really important when they get to middle school, because when they get to middle school, we have hormones that come into place.
Oh, yeah. I'm dealing with that now.
And so the one thing
let's
that
go.
I would say as a parent myself and as a principal, middle school, you focus on keeping your kid connected with the school. It is about academics, because the academics change drastically in middle school, but keeping your student connected, because historically in research, we know that students typically drop out in the mind in sixth grade.
Oh, wow.
In sixth
Interesting.
grade. So middle school is all about keeping them connected with any activities. That's typically when sports come into play, different clubs and activities that cater to what they like. It's typically what we see in middle school. So keeping them connected is important.
And when you say connected, do you mean connected to school activities
Yes.
or just activities in general? Because, for example, my daughter plays soccer, but she doesn't play soccer at the school. But she does have some friends from middle school who are on her team. So is that a form of connection, or are you emphasizing staying connected to what's going on that school campus?
So I would say stay connected with school activities. It's good that they're involved with activities in the community as well, but staying connected with school activities.
Okay.
So being in something, I know one of the biggest things I thought about with my daughter was, what is she going to be in? She can't just play violin, you know, and so she wanted to try for drill team. So I was all for it. And she stayed in that to 12th grade. So being connected, we know that students drop out in the mind and in the heart in middle school.
Wow.
Okay. In high school, I would say that coaching to go to the next level. All of our high schools are equipped, no matter what high school you go to in the country, are equipped with pathways to get your students those certifications, those post-secondary opportunities while they're in high school. So in high school, it's all about that coaching for post-secondary opportunities. As a parent, you should know what pathway your student is doing, what endorsement they may be seeking, what certifications, what internships, apprenticeships, all that stuff takes place in high school. So really staying on top of that coaching to go to the next level in high school, again, middle school, that connectedness, and then elementary, those foundational skills.
Perfect. Well, I wish I had a principal like you.
I know, right?
When I was coming up, but your kids, and I know they're all your babies at the school in which you're at, are very lucky to have you.
Well, thank you.
And we just want to say thank you so much for joining us today and contributing to this conversation, which we feel is so important.
I didn't realize it would be as informative as it actually turned out to be. Like, because there's so much that we just don't know. And, you know, we both have kids that are in, you know, school age kids. So this was very enlightening for me. And I hope that our listeners, you know, feel the same way once the episode drops.
Well, come on, parents, we're ready. Get involved.
Get involved. That's the key takeaway. Perfect.
Yep.
Siobhan, thank you so much for joining us.
Of course. Thank you.
We are back. And again, Siobhan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Really appreciate you lending your voice to a conversation that feels very relevant for a lot of our listeners. You know, we always say we are mothers, we're wives, ex-wives, entrepreneurs, whatever the case may be. But motherhood is probably one of the roles that we take the most seriously.
Absolutely.
So, getting your kids ready to launch is a really important thing just in life, and I know one that we're equally passionate about. So
absolutely,
this education piece was, I feel like, a really important conversation.
Really good, yeah, really good.
And we forgot to mention, but like, yes, we're far more casual this go round than we normally are. We felt like, shit, we're talking about school and our kids. Like, why not dress the part?
This is what we are. This is what we look like at 8 a.m. on any given day of the week.
So we know that some of you guys have said, like, wow, like, how do y'all keep it up consistently week after week? I mean, we do, But for the most part, this is what you get, right? If you catch us at the grocery store, you catch us
the grocery store, the
in
gas station,
carpool line, or the
drop
school pickup
offs,
line. This is what we're looking like.
Yeah.
So we're just like, we're normal people.
Very normal. Very normal.
Who just
too
enjoy
normal.
just an elevated life when we can.
Yeah.
When we can.
Okay, so let's transition to what's popping.
Let's.
Do you have a topic for the week?
I do. Okay. And I apologize, friends. This is probably week 3 or 4 that we've talked about this man. Mm-hmm. But who's counting? About this man. But this is the latest update in the Surviving Diddy saga.
Okay.
As you may have seen, Stevie J is choosing violence and deciding to go up against 50 Cent.
What is he doing? What did I miss?
He's basically saying he's prepared to have a rumble in the jungle with 50.
Okay.
And because I guess 50's, the mother of 50's child, was named in the most recent case against Diddy by Rodney Rod Jones.
Fight 50.
Allegedly.
I want to beat you up. Okay.
Yeah. Stevie J, who really isn't relevant. 50, who is more relevant. But yeah, he's choosing violence. And allegedly 50 Cent's, the mother of 50 Cent's child, was named as a sex worker in this case. And
she denied it. Let me put that out there. She did deny it.
Yeah, all of this is alleged.
Yeah.
But what I know to be true and factual is that a little birdie dropped a link to all 73 pages of the court documents.
So you got the court documents.
I have.
You have the full thing.
I have the court document.
So did you read all 73 pages? You went through all of it.
And
thorough.
Did. I looked at the pictures. I looked at the claims.
Wow.
And
so knowing what you know now, what's your perspective?
Diddy's going to jail.
No.
And some other people might be too.
Really? What was illegal in there? Like what was the illegal aspect of
a couple of things?
Okay.
And I'm no lawyer, so let's just make sure that we couch this conversation within that context. I am not a legal professional. I am simply somebody who is very curious about illegal activity. But here are the things. There's claims around sexual harassment and sexual assault by Mr. Combs. There are things related to Mr. Stevie J himself and him involved in homosexual activity. That happened. Young Miami's named in this as well, and apparently she has an airtight alibi, but she's named as being someone in here, but more specifically her cousin who sexually assaulted the plaintiff. Diddy's son,
Christian?
No, not Christian, not his son, but his stepson. Albie Shore's son is named, and Diddy is also named in
Quincy is his name.
Quincy, thank you. In engaging in underage sexual activity, so sex with minors. There's just a lot. There's a lot of pictures. There are famous actors that are named in here, and there's photos with said famous actors in here. It's scary. I'm just gonna say it's scary.
Yeah.
It's scary.
That's crazy.
I just think that even Diddy's personal assistant, what is interestingly called out here is the personal assistant who's affectionately known as KK. Christina Korem is her name. They say here in the court document, and the court document really is just like the lawyer making claims and then putting a whole bunch of evidence, photographic and or non, just verbal evidence against that claim. They say that the defendant, Christina Korem, is the Ghislaine Maxwell to Sean Combs' Jeffrey Epstein.
So she set everything up.
Now,
didn't it come out that she's agreeing? Not her, no, the record label lady.
The record label lady is doing something a little bit different. Yeah, she is trying to make sure that she protects herself and her assets. But yeah, there's 73 pages of, if you're looking for a light read, of content here that you can go through. But my non-legal take on this is that either Diddy's going to have to find another 30 million, maybe not 30 million, maybe a little less, but he's going to have to find some money because this man is chirping like a canary.
Yeah. And he looks like he has the evidence to prove to back it up. Yeah.
The receipts are here.
That's the word I'm looking for. The receipts to back it up.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's sex trafficking, sex with underage girls.
Wow.
There's violence, shootings. There's just a lot in here. And so all this to say, not all that glitters is gold.
Yeah.
Right. Not all that glitters is gold. And if it looks too good to be true, it probably is.
Yeah.
And I know when Jay was on here, part of the conversation was that for so long, Diddy was viewed as kind of the upper echelon, and was not even viewed, was the upper echelon, right, of Black excellence. And I don't want to sit here and say that all that goes to the wayside.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't. He has made significant contributions to the music industry. He has got us into the culture, correct? And he's got us into spaces that people who look like us haven't historically had access to.
Yeah.
But at what price? Freedom, folks. Yeah. And that's the part that unfortunately keeps unfolding.
Yeah.
So he's
sucks.
back in the news.
Yeah. It sucks. I mean, it sucks to be him right now. It sucks to be affiliated with him right now. It just kind of sucks. It looks like overall just to be in the industry, because now people are like whispering about Jay-Z. And I'm like, oh my God, just stop. So now like there's people that are saying like, conspiracy theories about like some people that he had dealings with that like turned up missing, and like, so it's like, it seems like a new tide has turned, and that now people are spilling the tea. But you know what they always say, what's done in the dark will come to the light.
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
And so here we are.
We sit
back and wait. Diddy seems to have like a really good, I'm sure he has a very good legal team. The best legal team. And I mean, for all intents and purposes, like he seems to be unbothered. Just from like the rare photo that came out. He was in Miami. Daughters, right? I know he was in Miami with someone. There was another one that came out. Yeah, after that. And then, definitely my heart goes out to his daughters, because somebody said that like his daughter's senior year in high school is just going to be plagued with all of this stuff that's in the news about their dad. Right. So it's like my heart goes out to them. But yeah,
for sure.
It's crazy times, child. Yep. Crazy times.
Very crazy times. And you mentioned JC, and it made me think about the album drop that happened.
Oh, Cowboy Carter.
Cowboy Carter. Yes. Shout out to Beyonce, #1 on the country music charts, as well as the regular charts.
Okay, I hadn't checked. So she is #1 on the country charts. Oh, so, I know her haters don't like that.
Listen, music is music.
I know them haters don't like it, child.
I love what she's done as far as just like knocking down doors and being a barrier breaker and
bringing
making
awareness
history.
To the history.
Absolutely.
Some forgotten names in the country music.
Forgotten and then also emerging, right? Yeah. Because there are a lot of Black country music artists that she has featured on her album who are probably getting the platform that they could never even imagine getting on their own. So, shout out to Beyonce for just continuing to be just exemplary.
The most strategic and exemplary artist in person ever.
Yes. And then lastly, I think to round it out, we just want to take a moment to say thank you to the folks at R&B in the Park.
H-Town,
the inaugural R&B in the Park. We had an opportunity to do the toast and to raffle off some bottles of champagne to folks in the audience. Y'all showed up. Houston, you showed up and you showed out.
Yes.
You did what we do.
Much fun.
It was so much fun.
So much fun.
It was a safe place to catch a vibe, and a vibe was caught.
The vibe was definitely caught. It was so much fun.
It was so much fun.
Yeah.
What was your favorite part?
My favorite part was just singing loud, unapologetically, out in the open with everybody else. So everybody else was just kind of like on the same wavelength.
Yeah.
So it just was really great. I'm an R&B music head, love R&B music. So I was just completely in my element. So it was such a great time. And if you have tickets or if you're thinking about going or attending it in another city, do it because
don't
think about it. Just do it because it was a vibe.
Yeah. Bring a chair, bring a blanket, and unless you're doing VIP. And if you're doing VIP and you want to get seating, get there early because that goes very quickly. But such a good time, amazing vendors, amazing artists we had, and just the best time. And want to take a moment also to just shout out our videographer who came on site with us, Braxton. He's our producer, also in the background here. He did an amazing job capturing footage that we
cannot wait to show y'all the pictures and the video.
Yes. So thanks again to the team at R&B in the Park. And listen, we're actually trying to make sure that we go on this tour to the various cities. So DC,
we're available.
It's coming. NOLA, it's coming. LA, it's coming. Atlanta, New York City. There are a lot of stops on this tour. So like Kelly said, if you don't have your ticket, get it. Don't even think twice about it. Just buy it. It'll be a vibe. So yeah, I think that's it for us.
We're good. I don't have what's popping.
Okay, cool. That's enough.
We get to wrap this thing up.
Okay, follow us, Champagne Wives Podcast on Instagram, Champagne Wives Podcast on YouTube. If you have episode ideas, topics, email us at champagnewives, no podcast, but champagnewives@gmail.com. We have gotten 2 amazing episode topics that have made their way into our DMs or even our comments on YouTube. We are close to wrapping up this season, but we will certainly have some conversations and figure out how we can incorporate those topics into next season, but keep those ideas coming. We absolutely want to produce content that resonates with us, but equally important, resonates with you all. So continue with that idea sharing, and we will see y'all next week.
Same time, same place. Bye, y'all.
Bye.